ये आकाशवाणी है। अब आप प्रियंका अरोड़ा से समाचार सुनिए। झारखंड विधानसभा चुनाव के चौथे चरण का प्रचार आज शाम समाप्त हो रहा है। इस चरण में 4 जिलों धनबाद, देवघर, गिरिडीह और बोकारो में 15 निर्वाचन क्षेत्रों में सोमवार को मतदान होगा। सभी राजनीतिक दलों के नेता रैलियां और जनसभाएं कर रहे हैं। भारतीय जनता पार्टी अध्यक्ष अमित शाह और कार्यवाहक अध्यक्ष जगत प्रकाश नड्डा आज कोयलांचल और संथाल परगना में कई जनसभाओं को संबोधित करेंगे। असम के पुलिस महानिदेशक भास्कर ज्योति महंता ने कहा है कि राज्य में स्थिति नियंत्रण में है। उन्होंने कल रात आकाशवाणी को बताया कि कानून व्यवस्था की स्थिति पर नियंत्रण के लिए अतिरिक्त बल तैनात किया गया है। उन्होंने ये भी कहा कि कल 1000 से अधिक लोगों को हिरासत में लिया गया, जिनमें से 65 को हिंसक प्रदर्शनों में शामिल होने के आरोप में गिरफ्तार किया गया। पुलिस महानिदेशक ने आंदोलनकारियों से अपील की कि वे सावधान रहें ताकि शरारती तत्व हालात बिगाड़ न सकें। उन्होंने अभिभावकों से भी सावधान रहने को कहा ताकि नागरिकता संशोधन अधिनियम के विरोध प्रदर्शन में उनके बच्चे शामिल न हो सकें। महंता ने कहा कि पुलिस स्थिति बिगड़ने नहीं देगी। डिब्रूगढ़ नगर पालिका क्षेत्र में कल 5 घंटे के लिए कर्फ्यू में ढील दी गई। हालांकि कामरूप जिले में अनिश्चितकालीन कर्फ्यू जारी है। जिले के पुलिस उपायुक्त विश्वजीत पेगो ने आकाशवाणी को बताया कि गुवाहाटी और जिले के अन्य भागों में आवश्यक वस्तुएं उपलब्ध कराने के लिए जरूरी कदम उठाए गए हैं। राष्ट्रीय गंगा पुनरुद्धार संरक्षण और प्रबंधन परिषद की पहली बैठक आज कानपुर में होगी। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी बैठक की अध्यक्षता करेंगे। प्रधानमंत्री कार्यालय के ट्वीट में कहा गया है कि श्री नरेंद्र मोदी इस बैठक में गंगा की सफाई से जुड़े काम के विभिन्न पहलुओं और प्रगति की समीक्षा करेंगे। बैठक में उत्तराखंड के मुख्यमंत्री त्रिवेंद्र सिंह रावत भी भाग लेंगे। कोयला मंत्रालय 6 कोयला खदानों के आवंटन पर विचार कर रहा है। इन खदानों को विद्युत, लौह और इस्पात तथा कोयले की बिक्री के लिए चुना गया है। मंत्रालय ने कहा है कि 15 कोयला खदानों में से 6 के लिए आवेदन मिले थे और इनकी नीलामी की प्रक्रिया शुरू की गई थी। आवेदनों के मूल्यांकन के आधार पर खदानों के आवंटन पर विचार किया जा रहा है। इन खदानों के आवंटन से देश में प्रतिवर्ष 50 लाख टन कोयले का उत्पादन बढ़ेगा और आयातित कोयले पर उद्योगों की निर्भरता में कमी आएगी। भारत और इंडोनेशिया ने रक्षा, सुरक्षा, संपर्क और व्यापार के क्षेत्रों में सहयोग मजबूत करने का फैसला किया है। कल विदेश मंत्री एस जयशंकर और इंडोनेशिया के विदेश मंत्री रेतनो मरसूदी की बैठक के दौरान इस पर विस्तार से चर्चा की गई। दोनों पक्षों ने भारत इंडोनेशिया संयुक्त आयोग की 6ठी बैठक के दौरान समग्र द्विपक्षीय संबंधों की समीक्षा की। बैठक के दौरान दोनों देशों ने रक्षा, सुरक्षा, संपर्क, व्यापार, निवेश और दोनों देशों के लोगों के बीच संपर्क मजबूत करने की वचनबद्धता दोहराई। भारत प्रशांत क्षेत्र के महत्वपूर्ण भागीदार होने के नाते दोनों देशों ने क्षेत्र में सामुद्रिक सहयोग बढ़ाने का आह्वान किया। मुंबई की एक विशेष अदालत ने पंजाब नेशनल बैंक घोटाले के प्रमुख आरोपी भगोड़े हीरा व्यापारी मेहुल चोकसी के गैर जमानती वारंट को रद्द करने से इनकार कर दिया है। केंद्रीय अन्वेषण ब्यूरो सीबीआई के विशेष जज वीसी बर्डे ने सीबीआई के वकील ए लिमोसिन और चोकसी के वकीलों की दलीलें सुनने के बाद कल उसे राहत देने से इनकार कर दिया। चोकसी और उसके भांजे पर पीएनबी बैंक के साथ 14,000 करोड़ रुपए की धोखाधड़ी का आरोप है। महाराष्ट्र आतंकवाद रोधी दल ने 2006 के एक मामले में प्रतिबंधित स्टूडेंट्स इस्लामिक मूवमेंट ऑफ इंडिया सिमी के सदस्यों को दिल्ली से गिरफ्तार किया है। 13 वर्ष पहले ठाणे जिले के मीरा रोड इलाके में छापे के बाद दर्ज इस मामले में एजाज अकरम शेख और इलियास अकरम शेख वांछित थे। ये दोनों भाई 2006 के मुंबई ट्रेन विस्फोट मामले के अभियुक्त एहतेशाम सिद्दीकी के कथित सहयोगी बताए जाते हैं। एजाज अकरम को बृहस्पतिवार को मध्य प्रदेश से गिरफ्तार किया गया था। उससे पूछताछ के बाद दिल्ली से इलियास की गिरफ्तारी हुई। दोनों को छानबीन के लिए मुंबई ले जाया जा रहा है। इसके साथ ही ये समाचार बुलेटिन समाप्त हुआ।
This is All India Radio. The news read by Subhadra Ramachandran. In Jharkhand, campaigning for the fourth phase of assembly elections will end this evening. In this phase, polling would be held on Monday in 15 constituencies, spread over 4 districts of Dhanbad, Devghar, Giridih and Bokaro. Our correspondent reports that campaigning has been intensified as political leaders are making last-ditch efforts to woo the voters. Star campaigners and senior leaders of all political parties are to hold series of public meetings and rallies. In Naxal-affected 5 assembly segments of Bogodhar, Jamua, Giridih, Dhumri and Tundi, campaigning would end at 3 p.m., while in the rest of 10 seats canvassing would continue till 5 p.m. In Uttar Pradesh, the first meeting of National Rejuvenation, Protection and Management of River Ganga Council will be held at Kanpur today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will chair the meeting. In a tweet, PMO said that during the meeting, Mr. Modi will review progress of work and deliberate on aspects of cleaning the Ganga. Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, Trivendra Singh Rawat, will also attend the meeting. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reiterated India's commitment to partner the government of the Maldives for a strong, democratic, prosperous and peaceful Maldives. Interacting with Foreign Minister of Maldives, Abdullah Shahid, who called on him in New Delhi yesterday, Mr. Modi conveyed his compliments on the achievement of President Ibrahim Mohamed Solih in its first year. He noted with satisfaction the enhanced level of engagement between India and Maldives and the positive outcomes of bilateral cooperation during the last 1 year. The Maldivian Foreign Minister thanked Mr. Modi for his vision and strong leadership in driving the India-Maldives relationship. Mr. Shahid is in India for the 6th India-Maldives Joint Commission meeting, which was held in New Delhi yesterday. 3 MOUs were signed and exchanged after the meeting. India and Indonesia have resolved to strengthen cooperation in areas of defense and security, connectivity and trade during talks between External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and his Indonesian counterpart, Retno Marsudi, in New Delhi yesterday. The two sides reviewed the entire gamut of ties at the 6th India-Indonesia Joint Commission meeting. The External Affairs Ministry in a statement said that during the meeting, both sides reiterated their commitment to strengthen ties in the areas including people-to-people exchanges. As key partners in the Indo-Pacific, both sides called for greater synergy in the region, guided by the shared vision on maritime cooperation. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh chaired a meeting of the Consultative Committee of Parliament for the Ministry of Defence in New Delhi yesterday. The subject of the meeting was Border Roads Organisation (BRO). Director General BRO Lieutenant General Harpal Singh gave a detailed presentation on the working of the organisation, especially on maintaining operational road infrastructure for the armed forces in border areas. The ministry said in a statement the Defence Minister lauded the efforts of BRO in building border infrastructure and contributing to the improvement of lives of people residing in the border areas. It said during the course of discussion, members gave valuable suggestions, which Defence Minister appreciated. A special court in Mumbai has refused to cancel non-bailable warrant issued against fugitive diamond merchant Mehul Choksi, a key accused in the alleged Punjab National Bank scam. Choksi had moved the court in June last year seeking cancellation of the warrant, which the court issued for not responding to the summons and participate in the probe. Last week, the court had rejected a similar plea by Choksi in the PNB scam case registered by the ED under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Choksi and his nephew, Nirav Modi, in connivance with some bank officials, allegedly duped PNB of 14,000 crore rupees by obtaining letters of undertaking fraudulently. Assam Director General of Police Bhaskar Jyoti Mahanta has said that the situation in the state is under control. Talking to AIR correspondent last night, he said that additional forces have been deployed to control the law and order situation. Mr. Mahanta said that over 1,000 people were detained yesterday, out of which 65 were arrested for their alleged involvement in violent protests. The DGP has appealed the agitators to be careful so that bad elements do not hijack the situation. Mr. Mahanta said that police would not allow the situation to go out of hand. The Coal Ministry has said that it is considering allotment of 6 coal mines that are being marked for end users like power, iron and steel and sale of coal. And that is the end of this news bulletin.
This is All India Radio. In the weekly program Current Affairs, now we bring you a discussion on major bills in the winter session of Parliament. The participants are political analyst Anand Mishra and Sandeep Hukan. Aditi Tandon, journalist, initiates and moderates the discussion.
The winter session of Parliament came to a wrap today, and it was a highly productive session, and also extremely heated debates were witnessed on a range of bills and a range of political issues. Even today, before the House wound up, there was a debate around a certain remark that former Congress President Rahul Gandhi had made in Jharkhand. Coming back to the larger issue and the issue of legislative agenda of the government and the productivity of the government, the Lok Sabha recorded a productivity of 106% in the winter session, and Rajya Sabha recorded that of 99%. This is the statement given by Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi today as he described how the session went. During the session, as we know, 18 bills were introduced, 14 were passed by the lower house, the Lok Sabha, and 15 were passed by the Rajya Sabha. And we've all seen this particular session of Parliament has been fully and comprehensively dominated by the Citizenship Amendment Bill, which amends the Citizenship Law of 1955 to give citizenship of India to 6 non-Muslim minorities who have been persecuted on religious grounds in 3 bordering countries of India, Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. So let's begin with this important bill, and we'll take up other bills as the discussion goes forward. Anand, what do you think in a gist? How do you see the political clashes building up around the Citizenship Amendment Bill, considering Assam is currently under curfew?
Aditi, if you see, the northeastern states are on boil. So, and the kind of protests that are happening here, perhaps that was not imagined by the government also, because the scale of protest was perhaps not in the mind space. Because far as the bill is concerned, it was on the agenda of BJP for a long time. If you remember, in the last government also, they tried to push it through. They passed it in Lok Sabha, they could not bring it in Rajya Sabha. Obviously, numbers was a priority then, and perhaps was felt that they could not have the numbers so easily at that time. So, gone ahead with it, they have fulfilled one of their key promises, because the government's argument is that since these minorities were being persecuted in the neighboring countries, Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh, so there are some country, India being the most populous country, had to provide some succor to them. But this bill has different perspectives. If you see, there is a North Indian perspective, there is a Northeastern perspective. So possibly the second aspect possibly was not taken into account that much. And that is why this challenge is coming up before them. That is why this kind of protest is happening here. We will have to really see how it pans out in the time to come, because there seems to be no letdown in the protest in Northeast.
Sandeep, Union Home Minister Mr. Amit Shah, when he was replying to the debate in both the houses of Parliament, he primarily said that this bill was necessary because the country was divided on the basis of religion. And he launched a very scathing attack on the Congress party, saying that you were in the position of authority at that time and you were the ones who accepted this partition. Naturally, all Congress leaders contested that in both houses. Be that as it may, the Home Minister also made a point that it is important to look at 2 issues when you look at the Citizenship Amendment Bill. 1, they have chosen 3 countries that are bordering India. 2, they have chosen theocratic states which have Islam as the professed state religion. And the minister has repeatedly said in both houses of Parliament that the bill has nothing to do with the Muslims of the country. The bill only seeks to give citizenship to a large mass of religiously persecuted 6 minorities, namely Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, Jains, Parsis and Christians. So he is basically making an argument that Muslims are not a minority in the theocratic states that he is stating. So where do you think is the complication? Why do you think Assam is boiling?
Anand was saying that there are 2 perspectives to this entire debate. One is that theoretically you can say that it also includes, apart from Hindus in these countries, that is in Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh, it also includes other communities like Buddhists, Sikhs, Christians, others, but also Hindus. That is one perspective, and they are saying that since the Hindus were persecuted and that is why they had no other place to go, that is why they have now, it is a law for them to seek citizenship. Earlier there was no such law. We don't have a refugee law in India. So this is addressing that issue. Anand was saying was the Northeast perspective, and the Northeast perspective, it is not about religion, it is actually about people fighting for their identity, because one must understand that in the Northeast it's a complex issue in terms of demography. You have many tribal communities. You have many different ethnic groups coexisting, and there are fault lines existing from before. It's not as if that it started just suddenly. But what happens is that when you bring in something like this, no matter how many rounds of discussions or consultations you do, there will always be a difference of opinion between New Delhi thought and what people on the ground understood. And that is precisely what has happened. One has to appreciate the fact that Assam is a state that has dealt with the problem of immigration, infiltration, however you call it, undocumented migrants coming and settling there. That is one, post 1971. The other issue has been, of course, that the Assam agitation that went on between 1979 and 1985, that essentially was what is also called as the anti-foreigners movement. The Assam movement was essentially an anti-foreigners movement, where the local people believed that large-scale influx that went on unchecked has created an imbalance in terms of the locals themselves getting outnumbered. It was a fight for their own culture and language and identity, as I said. All of that resulted in the Assam Accord of 1985. What this Citizenship Bill does, of course, the bill does make provisions to protect what was mentioned in the Clause 6A of the Assam Accord and Clause 5 and 6 of protecting indigenous people and their identities. Even the Citizenship High-Level Committee was set up. But those fears are very much there. That is why you see Assam such a boil, and I completely agree with Anand when he says that certainly the government had not anticipated this sort of protest. Guwahati was supposed to host the Japanese Prime Minister. Guwahati was the host city, as it were, for Indo-Japan summit, which has now been postponed. And
Right in saying that perhaps the scale of protests was not anticipated. But if you look at the body of the bill, it does say that the bill will not apply to minorities residing anywhere in India, barring the tribal areas of Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram or Tripura, as included in the 6th schedule of the Constitution. So these areas have been left out. Plus, it has also been said that the Citizenship Amendment Bill will not cover areas under the Inner Line Notified Permit under the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation of 1873. But as you said, your point is well taken. But let's move forward, Anand. A legal challenge to the Citizenship Amendment Bill is expected. The Indian Union Muslim League has already gone to the Supreme Court yesterday, and the President also gave his assent to the bill last night. So how do you think politically this is going to pan out? Because I believe the Congress party is also looking at challenging the bill on grounds that it allegedly violates Article 14 of the Constitution, which is equality before law.
As you rightly pointed out, that the bill excludes some areas of northeast, especially Assam. Provisions means that Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Mizoram, along with almost whole of Meghalaya and parts of Assam and Tripura stay out of the purview of the bill. That's why you see the center of the protest is Assam, because the bill does not exclude the entire Assam area. As far as this opposition versus government politics is concerned, that will continue for some time. That will continue. Legally, what happens in the Supreme Court, that we will have to wait for a few more days to see. But definitely from both sides, you find equally strong arguments. Government side, you feel the ministers are arguing that since it's a decision of Parliament, policy decision. The other day, hearing Mr. Harish Salve was also saying that's a policy decision, so there may not be much of role for the Supreme Court to really intervene into the matter, because effectively the government's argument is that these 6 minorities were being persecuted in 3 countries, and hence a provision has been, enabling provision is being made through the bill to allow them to get citizenship of the country, which was happening anyway for a long time. For different communities, the bill has been amended a number of times. Now, whether this questions the basic tenet of secularism of the Constitution, that is a question that has to be decided. Perhaps that will come for legal scrutiny when the bill goes to Supreme Court.
Sandeep, the primary argument of the government behind the Citizenship Amendment Bill is the principle of reasonable classification allowed under the Right to Equality Law, Article 14 of the Constitution. So, Home Minister Mr. Amit Shah mentioned repeatedly in both the houses that there have been occasions in the past when respective governments have invoked the reasonable classification proviso to allow people to get citizenship of India. For instance, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, in the case of 1971, after Bangladesh was created, a lot of refugees were then allowed. But at that time, Hindu refugees, for instance, from Pakistan were not allowed. So the government of the day decided that we are going to open our borders for the Bangladeshi refugees. So likewise, this is the argument that the government is making, And the government seems confident that this particular bill is good in law. How do you see politically this situation developing? Do you see the government having an edge? Because the government and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has personally told all the MPs of the BJP to go in refugee colonies and to celebrate this bill with those refugees. Basically, the government is taking a very high moral ground in saying that, see, here is a strong government which is going to now grant citizenship to minority refugees from these theocratic states which had been persecuted for years. And Home Minister did say in Parliament, asked the Congress, why did you not do all this? And then a counter argument was made by the government that the entire debate has come around the issue of Muslim exclusion, and that you are not saying much about the inclusion of the 6 non-Muslim minorities.
Politically, how is this going to play out? Of course, the government of the day can take the high moral ground here, because it's a fact that even legal experts, the other day one heard Mr. Harish Salve saying that this reasonable classification proviso has been used and it need not necessarily violate Article 14 or equality before law, because the government could decide. The counter argument, of course, has been that citizenship has never been based on religion. And I followed the debate in the Rajya Sabha where, say, Satish Mishra of the BSP said that how do you decide only 3 countries, why not Sri Lanka or some other country, and open up minorities. Then the similar point was made by Mr. Chidambaram, who said that Tamil minorities would be left out. So those issues, opposition will make. But the government will certainly try to, because this has been a long-term agenda of the government. If you recall, Aditi, that even before the 2014 elections, giving citizenship rights to Hindu minorities from Pakistan was an explicit promise. And the BJP did not introduce this surreptitiously. It was part of their manifesto, of 2019 manifesto. And despite that, Northeast overwhelmingly, at least Assam, quite overwhelmingly voted for the BJP. 9 out of 14 MPs are from Assam. I think problem also lies in the fact that how it is appreciated, the problem of infiltration, how it is appreciated by people in power in Delhi and people on the ground, protesters, the local people there. That is one of the reasons. The other reason, as Anand was explaining to you, that why have we not seen these kind of such? Assam has virtually erupted, whereas other states haven't. So why this big difference? The big difference, majority of these states are protected under 6th schedule. So you can go and reside, but you cannot buy property. So your then inner line permit also makes it clear that if you are going there even for a short visit, your records are kept. These provisions, barring some very few districts of Assam, these provisions are not there in Assam. So coupled with the fact that the state has had to take burden of influx of people from Bangladesh, with the absence of these protective measures, this is what, in my opinion, has flared up the situation. Task for the government to reach out to the people, and we've seen the Prime Minister doing that yesterday.
It remains to be seen what the larger and long-term consequences of the Citizenship Amendment Bill are going to be. But clearly the government is not apologetic or is not going back or talking about anything other than the fact that we've done a great thing, and Mr. Amit Shah has gone on to say in Parliament that we are here to address and confront eye to eye the bigger problems of the country. We could also have had a status quo for 5 years, done our part and left. And he seems to be making the argument that we are not bothered about the political cost of this bill, if any. You want to add something, Anand?
Aditi, I would just like to tell you one thing. See, the stakes for BJP are really high in Northeast, because see, in 2016, when they formed the first government in any northeastern state in Assam, which is considered a gateway to all Northeast, it was considered a big success. After that, they formed NEDA and they gradually expanded their footprint in entire northeastern region. So the kind of protest that is building around this issue, I think that's going to have cascading effect in the longer run also. That loss is there for BJP. But if you look at in terms of total gain and loss, paying electoral dividends is concerned, I think BJP in a position of making some inroads, making some deeper gains. Because this sentiment of Hindus being persecuted in these 3 Islamic republics, that resonates on the ground among a large number of population. There is no denying the fact that there has been minority persecution going on in these 3 countries. It's not something which is out of blue.
I think the first big political test for the government will be the elections in West Bengal, but we'll see about that. Coming to another very important bill that was passed in the winter session, the Constitution 106th Amendment Bill that extends for 10 years the existing reservation of seats in Parliament and in state legislatures for members of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities. Sandeep, this is again a very important bill, and this also had an aside in the sense that the existing law said, the Constitution of India says that for 70 years from the commencement of the Constitution, you will have these reservations available for SCs, STs, and there will be 2 nominated members of the Anglo-Indian community. So whereas the government has explicitly stated that it wants to extend by 10 years this reservation deadline, which is supposed to end on 25th January 2020, it has not said so in respect of the 2 members of the Anglo-Indian community. And we all saw that it became an issue in the parliament. In fact, Derek O'Brien, who is the leader of Trinamool Congress in Rajya Sabha, himself a member of the Anglo-Indian community, making a very passionate appeal that you should also extend this nomination for Anglo-Indian community. But of course, the government is trying to give a message to the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, again a very underprivileged section of our society, that reservations are here to stay and that we are not going to tinker with any provisions of the Constitution, because you remember there has been a debate around whether the BJP is going to continue with this policy. So government has made it clear that reservations are here to stay.
Importance of the bill is actually in the political signaling that the BJP wants to send, and you're absolutely right. We all recall how the opposition went to town with RSS chief's comment about questioning whether there should be reservations without a deadline and whether there should be infinitely whether reservation policy, should there be rethink on continuing with the current policy. That statement cost them politically in Bihar just before the Bihar Assembly elections, and subsequently that statement was used by the opposition against the BJP government several times. So this bill in a way puts an end to that debate. The government can now turn around and say that don't go by statements, go by what we have done. The action shows that we believe in the reservation policy, because from time to time we have seen opposition questioning the government on this count. So this is an important signal that they have sent. And as far as the Anglo-Indian community is concerned, I think the argument is that the community itself is now just a little short of 300 in number. So whether there is any relevance for having 2 members of the community represented in parliament, because when this provision was made, the situation of the country was very different, and now after 70 years of independence it's very different. Of course, that's not how the community members look at it, and Derek O'Brien, for example, is one of them, who made a very passionate speech saying that because the numbers are so little, it is incumbent upon the government all the more to ensure that their unique identity is protected.
So under this provision of the Constitution, Anand, wherein you have reservation of seats for SCs, STs, currently we have 84 MPs of scheduled caste community in Lok Sabha, 47 MPs of the scheduled tribe community, and all over the country if we see there are 614 scheduled castes MLAs and 554 scheduled tribe MLAs. And Law Minister Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, when he was replying to this particular debate on the bill, he was making this point that, see, a new generation of leadership from these communities has emerged because of the available reservation under the Constitution. A very important point that Law Minister made in the course of debate on this bill was that there is not going to be any creamy layer for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe community, because you remember there was a debate and opposition parties in certain states have been talking about possibilities of a creamy layer along the lines of the OBC community, where you actually have a concept of creamy layer. But government makes it very clear, looking at the Dalit mass voters, that there is not going to be any creamy layer for these 2 communities. This is an underprivileged bracket and it is going to continue like this.
If we set aside this reservation for OBC, in which lot of politics was also behind the decision and everything, constitutionally also you cannot prescribe a creamy layer for SC, ST. The debate was going on, the buzz was going on, but when the reservation was provided to SC, ST, this possibility of introducing a creamy layer at later stage was also not there. So this cannot be done. So this is a kind of reassuring that the government is not going to make any special effort to bring in creamy layer in the matter of SC, ST reservation. See, this bill is mainly concerned with reservation in legislature. So through this bill, the government is also giving a larger signal that not only in legislative bodies, overall resolution policies also the government has no plans to go for a relook, despite the fact that from time to time there have been demands from RSS for a review of this entire gamut of policy. As Fukan rightly pointed out, and all of us have seen that in 2015 Bihar Assembly polls, this cost BJP dearly, and even 2 years back we had seen massive Dalit protest. Though the government had nothing to do with that, the Supreme Court had tried to some kind of do a balance in this Sea Atrocities Act. The government has to brand then also. First a major step towards reassuring the communities that see, when we are not touching your reservation in parliament and legislative bodies, then definitely we are not going to do it otherwise also.
Correct. So basically they are trying to reassure, as you both said, trying to reassure the SC/ST community that the status quo as far as reservations prevail will continue and there's going to be no change. So nobody should actually look at any kind of speculation around that. A very important information that was given to Parliament by the government during the debate on this bill was that there is going to be very shortly an All India Judicial Service, where also there will be a provision for SCs, STs. So as you said correctly, that they're taking it forward actually. There's no way they're going backward.
And that is going to be a big leap. They are really able to do it, really a big leap, and we'll have to see how judiciary also responds to it.
Absolutely. Now coming to very important bills that were introduced and piloted by Health Minister Harsh Vardhan. Sandeep, the first bill that we need to talk about is the Surrogacy Regulation Bill of 2019, a landmark health reform which will ban commercial surrogacy in India and which will only permit surrogacy for altruistic, ethical purposes. At the heart of the bill is that you cannot actually rent a womb anymore. It won't work like it used to work before, that you can hire any poor woman as a surrogate mother and you can pay her, exploit her, take the child and go away. Now only close relatives, a term which will be described at a later stage, can be surrogate mothers. And there's a whole set of definitions for who can be a surrogate mother, who are the intending parents. There is a whole set of provisions for protecting the child born out of surrogacy. So it's a very forward-looking bill, but it is a contentious issue, and it was sent to the Select Committee when it came to Rajya Sabha.
The bill is extremely noble in its intention, there is no doubt about it, because we have all read reports of how people, wealthy families and foreign nationals would come to certain villages, if I am not mistaken, certain villages in Gujarat, where this was a normal commercial practice to rent a womb and have a baby. And then there were several reports. You see, largely this was a completely unregulated sector. So there was no law to regulate this practice. Under what law do you act against somebody there were reports that, for example, if not a healthy baby was born, then the baby was left behind. Health of the surrogate mothers was also a big question mark. So intention of the bill without a shadow of doubt is very good, because A, you bring in regulation, B, you also define the purpose for which, so that some wealthy family or well-off individual cannot exploit poor family just because they happen to be from the poor family. A poor woman will not, poor in the sense that a financially weak family, somebody will not be able to exploit them. That is the second part. It's a welcome move. However, I think what is exactly an altruistic, because the word used is that it will be an altruistic surrogacy and only relatives can go for such surrogacy. So to find relatives and then who occupies, then there are also other issues about single mother. They are not covered. So these are issues that were raised. Perhaps we will see a better version of the bill once it comes out of the committee.
Correct. In fact, one of the contentious points in the bill, as Sandeep mentioned, Anand, is that how do you define the term close relatives? And there is a lot of demand that you also include friends in it. These are not the times when you can actually go to your close relative and tell them that you please bear a baby for me or for anybody else. So it's a very contentious issue. Coming to another bill, the bill to ban the manufacture, sale and distribution of electronic nicotine delivery systems. Again, a very important bill, because a lot of youngsters were getting addicted to these e-hookahs, e-cigarettes, vapes. These are all basically a steam of nicotine which you inhale. It gives you the same high, and now it is proven that it has lethal health impact.
That's true, Aditi, because when the solution bigger than the problem, then the government thought of doing away with it, because basically this e-cigarette was allowed because it was presumed that it will discourage smoking. So what happened, in place of cigarettes and tobaccos, these youngsters started using e-cigarettes more and more as an addiction, tool of de-addiction. In other countries also, in other Western countries also, it was felt that this e-cigarette is failing to work as an alternative, is failing to work as a tool of de-addiction. So others have done it before. India has much later, but it's a welcome move. It has to be done.
I think it's a very welcome move.
It's
for
a
the
welcome move, yeah.
simple reason that it seeks to remember it does not penalize somebody who is using the cigarette, because it's young children, youth who are using it.
It actually gives time to everybody to surrender the e-cigarette and other nicotine delivery devices if they have these in their possession. Moving on, Sandeep, in context of politics of today, two very important bills were. One was, of course, the bill that regularizes a lot of illegal colonies in Delhi. And it was a very important bill. A lot of families have been affected. How do you see the impacts of that bill?
It's a direct relation to the upcoming assembly elections. BJP is taking the assembly elections in Delhi very, very seriously, and they do face a challenge from the Aam Aadmi Party. So which is why, whether it was the quality of water being supplied by Delhi Jal Board or unauthorized colonies or pollution in Delhi, we've seen very intense and heated debate among BJP members and those from AAP, both in the Rajya Sabha as well as in the Lok Sabha, and I think it's directly related to...
Anand, we actually see both BJP, of course, because it's in the government, it has passed the bill, so naturally they will claim credit for it. But Aam Aadmi Party Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal is also saying that we were the ones writing to the centre to actually make these colonies legal.
See, there are 8 lakh people involved in this whole colonies. So
8 lakh families, mind you. So if you just multiply by 3, so that is some 20 lakh, 24 lakh.
It's a huge voting population. So naturally both the party will try to derive maximum mileage out of it. But in this tug of political war, if some welfare happens to people, why not?
Right, correct. Let's also quickly look at the Spg Amendment Bill. Again, a politically sensitive bill, generated a lot of debate because it said that the families of former prime ministers are not going to be protected endlessly, like we've seen the Gandhis had the SPG protection. So the SPG Amendment Bill now says that the prime minister will be protected and the former prime minister and their families for a period of 5 years. So Sandeep, how does that pan out?
Well, I mean, this has been an issue that was raised by the Congress. I mean, because the Gandhi family was involved, 3 members of their family. But that has been the case earlier as well. I mean, from time to time, governments, they review the security threat assessment. And if you recall, former prime ministers like Indira Kumar Gujral, the security was taken away. But it's true, late Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee's SPG security was continued until his last days. So Congress is saying that this is basically scoring over their political rivals, but the Home Minister was on record saying that that is not the case.
Right, absolutely. Also, let's mention that the Transgender Rights Bill was also passed by the Parliament in this session. Of course, there's no time left to debate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on major bills in the winter session of Parliament. The participants were political analysts Anand Mishra and Sandeep Phukan. Aditi Tandon, journalist, initiated and moderated the discussion. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can also listen to this program on our website newsonair.com. You can also follow us on the News on AIR app for updates. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.